15.
All right. We good? All right. Good evening, everybody. Danielle wants to stand up. I'm not sure why. Good evening. It's Thursday, April 25th, 2019. Time for the regular meeting of the Wenatchee City Council. So the first thing we always do is pledge to our flag. Councilmember Poyer, would you lead us?
Yes, please stand. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Poyer. And for the record, we have all 7 council members present this evening. First item on our agenda would be the consent items, which includes this evening's agenda, the vouchers, and the minutes from the previous meetings.
I make a motion to approve the agenda, the vouchers, and the minutes from the previous meetings.
second.
Motion by Councilmember Huffaker, second by Councilmember Bailey to adopt this evening's consent items, including the agenda, the vouchers, and the minutes from the previous meetings. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda would be citizen comment. We would, any member of the audience wish to address the council on something that's not on tonight's agenda, we'd give you 3 minutes and ask that you give us your name and address for the record. If you want to talk about Met Health Park, we'll go ahead and allow some time for that during that time. Oh, okay, come on up.
Good evening, everyone. Buenas tardes. My name is Teresa, and I live at 1119 Rosewood in Wenatchee. And I would just like to thank the City Council for some of the members that showed up to our Parque Padrinos gathering this last Monday. It meant a lot to have you there and kind of see the people who are really engaged and have learned about the importance of civic engagement by going to Olympia in March. But also, we're trying to bridge that gap for local city government too here. So I just wanted to thank you again for coming. And for those of you who couldn't join us to this last meeting, we would love to have you at our next gathering to kind of help just create more relationships in our community. So just thank you very much.
Thanks, Teresa. Thank you. Anybody else on the public comment? Seeing no other takers, we have 2 presentations today. The first is one of our favorites every year. So this would be the Poppy Days proclamation. So I would invite the Poppy Days folks to come up, and might be microphones there. Are you going to read us something or just?
Wait, do you want me to read it, Mayor?
We got a proclamation first, so
Yes.
I'm sorry. Okay. So we're going to read our proclamation first before we turn it over to you. So Councilmember Poyer, sorry about that.
The American Legion each year sponsors throughout the state of Washington a campaign for distribution of crepe paper poppies. And whereas all proceeds from the distribution will be used for the benefit of the men and women now serving in all armed forces, needy war veterans, the orphans and widows of deceased veterans. And whereas the charitable drive will enable all citizens to show their gratitude to servicemen and women and have a part in contributing to the assistance rendered to the needy and disabled, war veterans and their families. Now therefore, I, Frank J. Kuntz, Mayor of the City of Wenatchee, do hereby proclaim the month of May as Poppy Days. In the City of Wenatchee, I urge all citizens to support this worthy cause by wearing the poppy during this period. In witness whereof, I hereby set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Wenatchee to be affixed on this 25th day of April 2019. Frank J. Kuntz, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember. Why don't you send that over this way? So I'm going to turn it over to you guys. So can we get your names?
Hello, my name is Olivia Simonson and my brother Hoyt. And I have the honor of representing the American Legion Auxiliary Unit 10 Poppy Program as Poppy Prince and Princess for 2018 to 2019. It is our honor to distribute poppies, raise funds, and educate the public about the importance of what the poppy represents. The poppy reminds us of the sacrifices and continuing needs of our veterans, their families, and current service members. What the poppy means for me is that there are people who want to fight for their families and friends. They want to keep their nation safe, so they are willing to sacrifice their lives. An example of this sacrifice is the time fathers and mothers spend away from their families and children, serving in Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan, among other places. These military members spend months away from their families, coming back scarred emotionally as well as physically. The American Legion and Auxiliary support the military members and families by connecting with families while members are deployed, as well as helping members transition from the military to civilian life through resource and job fairs, as well as providing service officers to connect veterans with the benefits they earned. When you see the American Legion distributing poppies on May 17th and 18th at Albertsons and Safeway in Wenatchee, we invite you to honor these sacrifices with a heartfelt thanks and a welcome donation to help these programs continue.
Excellent. Round of applause. All right. So you guys need to come up and visit all of these nice ladies and gentlemen. First thing you need to do is get a picture with the mayor, because that'll make everybody happy. Get over here. Come on. Smile, like you like me. Okay. So, I give you that. Do I get one of those? Excellent.
Now you go
Now
around.
I'll go up and visit all those nice ladies and gentlemen up there.
You can start over here.
And when we're done, you work everybody in the audience.
That go through the audience twice.
Two of them.
There's two of them.
I put this. No, thank you.
Thank you.
You.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing this.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Danielle. Oh, yeah, no problem.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. I had a lot of ones. Like I was at a certain club. I was making it
Thank you,
rain.
guys.
Work the crowd.
The audience.
Yeah. Just like church, man. Got one going each direction.
All right, and while they're working the audience, we do have one more proclamation that we didn't get on the agenda. It's the Stand Against Racism, where I gave a speech this morning. Councilman Bailey, do you have that?
I do.
You'd read that on the record, please?
I will. Thank you. Proclamation, whereas the city of Wenatchee, Washington proudly supports the YWCA North Central Washington in celebration of Stand Against Racism, and whereas Stand Against Racism is now a signature campaign of the YWCA USA to build community among those who work for racial justice and to raise awareness about the negative impact of institutional and structural racism in our communities. This campaign is one part of a larger national strategy to fulfill their mission of eliminating racism. And whereas founded by the YWCA Trenton and YWCA Princeton in 2007, Stand Against Racism quickly grew to have a national presence by 2010, when an additional 80 YWCAs across the nation took a stand. In 2015, 152 YWCAs, along with 650 community organizations across 44 states, plus the District of Columbia, joined in the Stand Against Racism. Community sites include United Way's, Chambers of Commerce, state governments and other municipalities, universities, and colleges, Fortune 500 companies and small businesses, houses of worship, schools, civic associations, nonprofit organizations, hospitals, and others. And whereas we salute YWCA in its praiseworthy mission to eliminate racism, empower women, stand up for social justice, help families, and strengthen communities, now therefore be it resolved that I, Frank J. Kuntz, Mayor of the City of Wenatchee, do hereby proclaim April 25th, 2019 as YWCA Stand Against Racism Day. In witness whereof, I hereby set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Wenatchee to be affixed on this 25th day of April 2019. Frank J. Kuntz, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Bailey, and I read that today at the Stand Up Against Racism event at the college, so I think, and I gave, actually, Randy Lewis took the laminated copy, so, yep, he wanted it, so that was fine. Thanks, Councilmember Bailey.
You bet.
All right, and we have a 10-minute presentation, thanks, ladies and gentlemen, from Matt Collins regarding our GIS update. Did you hear the time frame? Okay.
10 minutes.
I bet you could do a half hour if we really asked you.
I would, yeah.
Yes.
I love what I do, sir.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Council members, mayor, thank you for inviting me to the council. Matt Collins, Public Works GIS Division Manager. So I'm here to give a short program update. First, I'll brag about the team, then talk about user satisfaction, give a one-slide program update, and then show some of the newest tools that we have. If you have questions about financials or special projects that we've done, I can address those as well. So we have a small team, but we're doing great things. Ron Hall, who's been with the city since 2010, myself, and we have 2 college interns for the summer. Also, Brent Corbally, who's with our collections team, has taken over the 12-month temporary operations data tech job. So he'll be starting in May. Really excited to have him on, help with our data correction and validation process. Looking at user satisfaction. User satisfaction is critical for a healthy GIS. We hand out surveys at every GIS training and event as part of our outreach plan. Between last June when we started this in December, we had 27 surveys returned with an overall score of 4.2, B+. We scored highest in technical support, but lowest in training opportunities. So for 2019, we're adding 5 new training opportunities to our schedule. The stat that I'm excited about is 80% of the folks who return the surveys are daily GIS users for their job. What's really exciting is that 20% are first-time GIS users, which is really encouraging. And that might be a good growth indicator for us. Every year, we'll add 20% more city staff as daily GIS users. Looking at the program, we're growing. We're growing fast, and we'll keep growing. Our training and professional services budget are right-sized, and execution will be better in 2019 than it was in 2018. Due to the wide adoption of GIS within the city staff and also our goal of empowering the public like other cities our size, I anticipate adding a new FTE GIS technician within the next 2 years. We'll continue our regional partnerships, things like correcting odd city addresses with Chelan County and Rivercom 911, or helping the PUD identify streetlights for their LED replacement projects. Lastly, we're committed to continual monitoring and improvement. Our system can be more agile. We can build higher confidence in our data. We can better empower our users, better equip our crews in the field. So we'll keep looking for ways to make GIS more useful for the city, make our crews more efficient and safer. Now, we'll get there by preparing for future growth, being open to ideas from our users, and looking at what other cities have done as their cities have grown and their GIS programs have grown. I like to follow the popular mantra, smart cities make data-driven decisions. And I believe GIS is our vehicle to make data-driven decisions. It's the vehicle that's going to get us there. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions before I look at some tools.
Is everything on GIS? Every storm drain, manhole, water valve? I mean, how much stuff do we have on the system currently?
We have about 150 different layers of different types of features.
Okay.
We have most of the utilities above ground, And a lot of our infrastructure and assets, GPS mapped or mapped through LiDAR or imagery or another process. So we know where most things are. Our issues are underground because things have changed and maybe the map doesn't reflect the current situation. So that's why we empower our field crews. They have the map on their devices in the field, just like this. They have the maps, they edit the data right there in their truck cabs. So it's very powerful, and we'll get them all.
Do we have outside users using the system at all? Engineers or other sorts of folks that are outside our organization using
Yes,
it?
I'll demonstrate what we're going to do with the public later in the year, but we share our data. We have a sharing portal that we've established with some of our larger contractors, and we share data. They can access our data directly through the Wenatchee network, and we can post up data. So no emails back and forth, no CDs through the mail anymore.
Other than the underground stuff, is there anything else that is not on the GIS?
Very
I
good
mean, you
question.
talked about,
Like
you know, the
streetlights?
things you
Yeah.
already have on there,
Mhm.
but what else don't we have on there?
That's a great question.
So are all the streetlights on?
All
Actually,
the streetlights are on.
I have one that's not necessarily a layer, but it's data integration. It was a
Okay.
question I posed to both Mr. Posenjack and Mr. DeVries, that in my council district, I wanted a list of the business licenses by situs and mailing address of the businesses in my district, and apparently our city databases are not. My idea was you put the polygon around my district, and miraculously through whatever database the city has, I get that listing, and apparently that's not possible at this point.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And so I guess my challenge would be to you and to Mr. Cantrell and Mr. Posenjack and maybe Mr. DeVries with the use of SmartGov and, the business licensing thing, to have those capabilities. Not for commercial purposes necessarily, but just a continued integration of our different databases
When you brought
to be the data-driven decision makers.
when you brought that to our attention, probably 6 months ago,
Yeah.
I talked to Josh Osborne and Mr. Fairbanks, and we looked at SmartGov. We sat down and tried to figure out how we can integrate SmartGov with the GIS product. The solution was they would pull an Excel spreadsheet, and we would pop that into the GIS. So unfortunately, there is some integration, but it's pretty low tech at this
Yeah.
point.
You'll get better,
Let's hope.
hopefully soon. Yeah.
So my question is on the anticipated FTE within 2 years. So I mean, the big part of this project has been getting it up off the ground, getting all the data entered and everything else. In 2 years, why is it we need a FTE position to maintain it? Or what is that role of that person, I guess is my question.
Our focus has been on utilities, but there are a number of city departments who are not fully using GIS. City Hall, Police and Fire, Parks and Rec, and we would want to have someone to work with those folks, not focus totally on public works.
So more of a training role, rollout to different department roles?
Outreach, training, user requirements gathering, facilitation. For example, when in February or January, February, when the rec were down at Pybus and they were showing off summer programs, GIS should be a part of that, but it wasn't. So this person would be like an outreach type person who would be responsible for setting up a booth and talking to people about GIS.
Okay,
I
thank
think
you.
GIS can also serve as a internal service department, and the capabilities within GIS, Matt certainly alluded to it, but getting our systems synergized between police and fire, crime mapping, you look at the types of data that you need, and there is a centralized GIS solution to that. So it's really exciting what the platform can do for us in terms of being a data-driven city. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions for Matt? Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate your good work.
Thank you.
Were you going to show the public portal? Or-
Yes, would you like me?
Yeah.
Okay, if I still have a few minutes?
Yeah.
All right. So currently, this is our public portal. This is where we publicize our public maps. It's not fancy, pretty plain. This is our beta version of our new web portal. As you can see, a lot of colors, a lot of imagery. The maps are organized in logical groupings. We've even embedded applications in the website, like our Wenatchee Valley Demographics web app. Because our service is now, our enterprise is modern, we can ingest applications that other people have made. So for example, we can serve up the drought tracker or the national water hydro model for our fishers and boaters. And also, can't forget the goat head identification program.
That's a lot of data.
And especially new, that's exciting, is we have a keyword search capability now. So the public can type in bikes, and they see our recreation layer with our bike lanes mapped, things like that. Wanted to demonstrate one of the new solutions we have. They're called story maps. Basically, they're a nice presentation format linked to the map. So it's a normal map that we would post up, interactive. So previously, all you would see is the map on the left there. What we did is we linked the councilman members' bios from the website. So as you scroll down, you know, Councilmember Harold, and the map zooms into their district.
Cool.
Councilmember Bailey.
Oh, sweet.
We're using this technology for historic housing, where instead of a picture of Councilmember Esparza, we have a picture of the old house
Okay.
with bio on it, or text on it. Also, Parks and Rec can use this. So we're excited on launching this. They're really easy to set up, which means that our city staff, with just a 30, 60 minutes and some thought, can make their own story maps and share it out. It's really neat technology. Do I have 3 more minutes?
Minute and a half.
Minute and a half. Okay, public notification. You have a place on the map. Let's say we have construction at PSC.
Great.
We select the parcels, so runs against the parcel layer, and it makes a pre-formatted mailing label of all the parcels around it.
Kidding me? That's pretty cool.
Parcels are city owners, so these are the property owners. Choose address points, and then you get site addresses, labeled or addressed, site address addressed to resident. Really neat. Used by permitting right now, but has applications across the city. And signage. This is our newest collector. Our sign shop is now went from paper, they're fully digital now.
Okay.
So we're managing all the city signs through the mobile device, actually. So our sign shop goes around, does their inspections. If they find a site that's not mapped, they collect it using the GPS in the tablet. It's added real time to our inventory. Then, as part of their inspections, they also assign some status. So let's zoom in here.
And how is that entered in there? There's a barcode on the signs, or is it a manual entry with the GPS location?
Manual entry with the GPS location. You could also take a picture.
Yeah.
We don't have that integrated right now, but you could take a picture of the sign. They do record the text of the sign. For example, the street sign here, Washington Street is the text. But you can also see these 2 street signs here have recently been replaced, as well as these. Move down here. See these 2 stop signs here. Let me turn on this legend. Need more inspection. Going down the street, construction at the school. These signs were here. And now they've probably been removed due to construction. So we have them flagged as needs replacing. So this is the way that the sign shop is managing the sign program, tracking replacements, doing cost estimating on the 7,000 signs that we have across the city. So with that, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Matt. Wonderful.
That's great.
Look forward to seeing you again, what, in the fall?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So we've got a number of action items this evening. So the first is regarding the White annexation. So I'm not sure who's doing Brooklyn.
Good evening. This is Brooklyn Holton, the Housing and Community Planner for the city. And in front of you guys, you have the 60% petition for the White annexation. This came to you guys already at 10%, and I'm not sure if you remember, but this was kind of an odd property where the value could only bring in one adjacent property, and it kind of created a weird boundary line, so we kept it with the boundaries established by the annexation application. So this evening, it is to accept the 60% petition. So we had the owners sign that petition, and they represent 100% of the value of the properties in the annexation. And this will then provide the Chelan County Boundary Review Board with notification that we intend to annex these properties, and that will start that next process. The next step after that would then to bring it back to you guys for that ordinance and the resolution, and then the ordinance that we used to do. So this is just, for this resolution is for the boundary review process that got added at the beginning of the year. Any questions on this one? This is our second time doing this step, but it doesn't change a lot for our process. It's just kind of a waiting game, add some time into the process.
I guess my first question would be, does the county really have a boundary review board established, set up with real members doing something?
Nope.
Okay, that's kind of what I figured.
Yeah, no.
So why are we going through this?
Yeah, so because they've gone through what they need to do to establish and have the ability to review, we have to do the process as if they had already or done that in a timely manner. And so we are just following that. We only have one that's gone to them so far with notification, and we have a minimum of 45 days to wait for their response. And so far we haven't heard anything, so I don't know what their approach will be to provide action as of right now. But we have a responsibility to, because they've done their...
Related to that, have they ever notified
Nope.
the mayors?
Nope.
You in particular?
They've not notified us. As far as we know, they
appoint?
haven't. I don't think they've even appointed their own individual one at this point. So again, I don't know where they're at, other than we're, I think, trying to follow the law the best that we can. And
Yeah.
if our attorneys are saying this is the process we need to use, we don't want someone to come back and say you didn't follow the right process. So the White's property
Yeah.
isn't in the city. So we're doing our best to sort of work our way through it.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit of a moot point in that they really haven't done anything, but if they decide to get them tomorrow and we're in the middle of one, I just assume we sort of do it the right way. And I think it's learning for them too, because they're getting a bunch of paperwork from us. And they're like, "I don't know what the hell to do."
Yeah, we have 9 annexations right now, so we can just maybe flood them.
Yeah. So,
But yeah, by the RCW, it's not based on the formal formation and having active members. It's based on them adopting and acting upon establishing that they want to have a BRB. So that's what we have to follow. Yeah.
So basically what it does is add 45 days to the process.
At least. Well, yeah. I mean, they could respond the next day and say, we have no intent to act, or our action is that we accept this. And they could do that right away if they wanted to. So, but we have to provide a minimum of 45 days to allow that response. So. Yeah, it could.
Okay.
yeah, it's,
120, yeah. They have up to 120 days to make a decision or act.
Well, Your Honor, I make a motion that we adopt Resolution 2019-17, fixing time for a public hearing on petition for annexation of an unincorporated area located on the east side of Met House Street between Broad Street and Hidden Meadow Drive and bordered to the west by parcels in city limits, also known as the White Annexation.
Second.
motion by Councilmember Kulas, second by Councilmember Harold to adopt Resolution 2019-17, fixing the time for the public hearing on the petition for annexation, generally in the neighborhood of Met House Street, Broad Street, and Hidden Meadow Drive, known as the White Annexation. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Brooklyn.
Thank you.
Mr. Hoover. Anaerobic digester.
Yes.
I thought anaerobic was what Anna did when she did Zumba.
I would be very anaerobic at that point. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Here to talk about the next plant upgrade that needs to happen. This is the fourth digester in our system, but the secondary digester. It's one of the items in the, call it about the middle stage of treatment of the waste through the plant process. Right now, the secondary digester that we have in place cannot be taken out of service. In order to clean it, do any maintenance whatsoever, it'll cause a significant upset to our treatment process. The secondary digester that's proposed has been identified several times in the past, most recently in the wastewater treatment plant facilities plan, as well as the sewer comprehensive plan and this year's capital budget. It's going to improve the reliability of the plant. It will allow us some flexibility in how we operate the plant. It will be able to run either simultaneously or independent of the existing secondary digester so that it could be taken out of commission and maintained. To date, it has not been taken out of commission since it was originally built. So at this point, we're looking at the design process. We've been talking to HDR. We also spoke with Gray and Osborne as part of the RFQ submittal process. HDR was deemed to be the best consultant based on their history, their knowledge of digesters. They have done many, many startup procedures in plants, internationally. So they have a vast knowledge in-house, not just in their Spokane office, but throughout the United States that they'd be able to draw on to answer conceptual questions or problems with microbes, et cetera, et cetera.
So timing, when does,
Excuse me.
a year to design, a year to build? When do you think in a building?
Approximately. We would start design literally next month with a plant walkthrough with various members of HDR, as well as our plant crews to identify what is where. One of the key challenges is going to be figuring out what piping actually exists at what
We
location.
have a GIS department that can help you with that.
Well, that's actually something that will be part of this is a BIM model for the system. That will give us an actual three-dimensional rendering of what the inside of the area that we survey looks like.
Okay.
So call it GIS plus, if you will. But Matt has been exposed to BIM services in the past, and this is just one future iteration of how life will eventually get when you're doing building design.
And we will be using we'd anticipate that we'd be using this similar design motif that we've adopted for our pollution control plant.
Say that again, I'm sorry?
Well, we have a standard of design there that I assume we carry on with that.
Yes.
The outside
same.
look and the.
It'll look similar to what's
Very
out there.
attractive. We look more like a spa than.
Yeah, there you go.
pollution control
We're
plant.
not planning on putting any additional lighting or holograms or anything like that out there, but it'll look the same as the other digesters that are
Okay.
out there. And we should not be affecting any of the previously installed odor control mitigation facilities that was put in, 5-10 years ago, something along those lines. But it will affect some of the landscape, some of the fencing, some of the trees. That's going to have to come out and then be replaced as part of this project.
And this was all part of the comp plan that we adopted a year or so ago, and
Correct.
I'll make a motion for the city council to authorize the mayor to negotiate with HDR for design services for the wastewater treatment plant digester number 4, project number 1810, and further authorize the mayor to sign a contract on behalf of the city.
Second.
motion by Councilmember Poyer, second by Councilmember Huffaker to authorize the mayor to negotiate with HDR for design services for the wastewater treatment plant digester 4, project 1810, and further authorize the mayor to sign a contract on behalf of the city. Discussion.
Just real quick, Jeremy, you said it hasn't been cleaned or taken care of or maintained, internally properly since it was built. When was it built?
I think that was in the early 90s. I would have to check to make sure. I can find that out for you specifically if you like.
That's close enough.
It's
I guess my
20,
question
30
is,
years.
it's been there a while, so is there any concern in terms of, the longer it goes, the greater the chance of something going haywire?
Right. Anything that's mechanically operated in a sewer system, there's eventually going to be a failure. We're talking 20, 30 years now. We haven't had any plant upsets associated with the digester facilities, and we'd like to keep it that way.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Tacoma Avenue improvements. Jacob.
Jacob Heiler, Engineering Services Manager. I'm here to ask for the same thing as Jeremy, but on a slightly less technical project. So, been here a couple times to talk about Tacoma, but just as a quick refresh, the city received roughly $1.3 million in a grant from the Transportation Improvement Board last November. Improvements on Tacoma Street between McKittrick and Maple will include curb and gutter on both sides, sidewalk on the west side of the street, a new lighting system, stormwater improvements, and then bike lanes as well to complete our city bicycle network through there. Back in February of this year, we sent out a request for qualifications to select a design engineering firm. We were fortunate to receive 9 proposals, and SCJ Alliance was selected as our most qualified firm. So I'm here tonight to ask for or to recommend the City Council allow the mayor to negotiate and eventually sign a contract with SCJ Alliance. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
When will this begin if it passes?
Construction or design?
All of it.
Okay, so design would start relatively soon. There's a long right-of-way process because we'd need more than what we have to construct our improvements. So that would take starting in 19 through 2020, construction starting in 2021.
So actual construction would just be for a short amount of time. I saw the start and end date and I'm like, why is this taking
Big
so
project,
long?
yeah.
Yeah, the
2019,
right-of-way
2020.
process has been the Achilles heel of most of our projects. So we've given ourselves time to make that happen. But yeah, I would
Actual
assume
construction in a few months.
80 days worth of, the summer of 2021.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I'd make a motion for the City Council to authorize the mayor to negotiate with SCJ Alliance for design services for the Tacoma Avenue Improvements Project number 1907, and further authorize the mayor to sign a contract on behalf of the city.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Bailey, second by Councilmember Markart to authorize the mayor to negotiate with SCJ Alliance for design services for Tacoma Avenue Improvement Project 1907. Authorize the mayor to sign the contract on behalf of the city. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Jacob.
Thank you.
Mr. King, getting close to a deal with Les Schwab, it sounds like.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Steve King, Economic Development Director. Yeah, so it's been a few years, but we've been working on the North Wenatchee redevelopment plan since the fires out there. And as you've seen before in previous actions, we've got our right-of-way established and are working on infrastructure plans for those areas. And so now we have remnant parcels to sell off, and the first property to sell off is a property that's located right behind the Schwab Tire Center. So what we have before you tonight is a purchase and sale agreement to sell the property for $24 a square foot, which matches the appraised value. The appraisal was based on establishing not only improvements on North Wenatchee Avenue, but also the improvements on Columbia Street, which are all planned, included in our budgets. So that's how we got to that pricing. Assuming approval, this will be closed in 30 days, or if we need a little bit extra time, we have to do a boundary line adjustment to complete this deal. So relatively a quick sale here. And then you'll see in the purchase and sale agreement that there is a post-closing agreement. It establishes a couple of things. One is that the city will go ahead and build Columbia Street. They'll build sidewalks on Columbia Street when it's time, when they obtain a building permit, and that their access points will be right in and right out. We're also they're also agreeing to quit claim the portion of an existing private road to the city, which will then become a public alleyway between Wenatchee Avenue and Columbia Street, and which will allow us to consolidate a couple access points into one. They're also agreeing that their access points will be right in, right out, and we will provide a left turn pocket, a channelized left turn pocket into the alleyway ahead, or instead of the two-way left turn lanes that are there now. As we build out North Wenatchee Avenue, they'll have a channelized left turn pocket. One area that we still would like to negotiate is there's a on that left turn, providing that left turn pocket or that left turn access. There's no time frame on it, so we'd like to go back to them and say this would be allowed for 15 years. We don't want to give a perpetual right in the public right of way to a business. So this will give us plenty of time. If there's growth needs after 15 years, we could take that left turn access out and put the median. So that's why I'm asking for some opportunity to negotiate a little bit further, but principally the document is here. And so we're asking for your approval tonight.
And just point of clarification, this is the same document you emailed us earlier. I appreciate you doing that, so we have
Yes.
time to read it.
Yes.
Yeah, and this is the first of what's going to be hopefully a number of them, and we worked pretty hard to keep to the appraised value of $24 a square foot. They were thinking 16, and then they were thinking 18, and we sort of basically said appraised value is appraised value. So I think this is a good deal, not only for us, but for Les Schwab, and I think sets the tone for the rest of those deals as we head south along that stretch.
Well,
Your Honor, go ahead.
I was curious if like $24, the highest raw land in the city? That seems high, which is good for us.
Yeah, according to the appraisal, there's a range, 35, I believe, was the highest, which was Panda Express, where Panda Express was in the appraisal, yeah. And so it ranged between 20 and up to 35.
Of course, this is sitting behind them, so
Yeah.
that would make sense. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, we expect the intersection property, I think, when McKittrick goes through, to be probably closer to $30 than 25, but maybe not 35. Depends what the market is when we get there.
Mhm.
But this is a good. This is exactly what we thought would happen. It's just taken us a while to get here. This is what we talked about when we first talked about buying Northwest Wholesale and what that might look like and where the street might go and who might be the buyers. I mean, this is exactly what we talked about. It just
And
didn't happen in a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The good part is that this is cleaning up a lot of property line issues. We'll probably, you'll see reference to a plat alteration that we need to do to get rid of an old private road. These lots that are being created are actually functional lots. They've got enough depth to them. So it's setting the area up for the long term.
I'm just gonna say I was very nervous when this first came because I was worried about a decline in the economy. So this is like great for us. I mean, I was, because it did take an extra year. I was nervous about it. So that's good. Good thing for us.
All right, any questions for Steve? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I will make a motion for, where am I?
Item D.
Oh, here I am. Motion for the City Council to authorize the mayor to sign a purchase and sales agreement with Les Schwab Tire Center of Washington and further negotiate final details of the agreement.
Second?
Motion by Councilmember Esparza, second by Councilmember Markart to authorize the mayor to sign a purchase and sale agreement with Les Schwab Tire, further negotiate final details of the agreement. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
All right, Kiwanis Meadow Park. Why don't we start with Charlotte? Why don't you come up and give us the details? And then I'm assuming we got a few members of the audience who would probably like to address the council, and then we'll turn it over to the council for their action. So Charlotte, we'll turn it over to you.
All right, so last Thursday was the bid opening for this project. We got 2 bids. The low bid came in at, let me get the exact number here. The low bid came in at $2.69 million, which was over TPL's engineer estimate of around $2 million. So we're here tonight asking for a little extra money to make this project happen. Just so you know, we did have bid alternates in the project, things that we could deduct out the alleyway. But in the low bid, that only amounted to about $48,000, which I don't see any reason to take out because that's actually pretty much a bargain for those alleyway improvements. So if we do choose to move forward with a project, I'd recommend we leave those in, as we are not likely to get a better price for those in the future as a separate contract.
So we didn't break any other alternates out to phase or
So
bid process?
the alternates in the project, let me list them, where we had the deductive 1 was no north-south alleyway improvements. Deductive 2 was no east-west alley improvements. And then the third one was providing only a bottom level of concrete seat walls along the soccer field.
So nothing in the park itself, none of the amenities in the.
Right, our
were bid
grant, we're
separately.
required to have certain elements in as a part of our grant agreement.
Like everything?
I guess I'd have to go check that.
Just curious.
Yeah.
Can you explain if you took something out and then you redid it, can you explain how that works and then can they get out of this bid or how does that work? Because I just know construction people are busy.
Right. So I did talk to some bidders and some non-bidders, just asking why we only got 2 bids because that seemed kind of low. There were 5 or 6 plan holders. And they said that there is a ton of work out for bid right now, both public and private. And one bidder indicated that this was more of a project management project than an actual big meaty project for them because there's lots of sub work in there. So for them, they would have had to dedicate a project manager to the project the whole entire summer. So that's why they didn't bid on it. So there's a couple steps we can take. We could, A, find some way to fund this, or B, we could reject all bids and then maybe engineer a bit and see if there were things that we could take out and then rebid it. I don't think that this is the best move forward because we already have a really heavy bidding climate. I think we'd get a higher bid and maybe even fewer bidders than 2 if we did that. And then we could re-engineer a bit and rebid in the fall, but then we lose a year, so we'd have to ask for grant extensions. And, there's no guarantee that would come in lower. Generally, bids in the fall come in lower, but there's no
guarantee on that. So did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I just want to make sure I understand. I'm thinking like when I buy a house.
Right?
And then you negotiate something and then I say, no, I don't want it. And then everybody can walk from it. If you reject bids.
Right. We have no room
Then you
for.
can't go back and say, no, we'll take this now.
Right. No, if we reject all bids, we lose this $2.6 million bid, which I think is, in view of the current situation, I think it is a good bid.
I just didn't know how that worked.
Well, I'm curious about that. If our engineer's estimate was quite a bit lower than that, $614,000 lower than that, $42,000. Why do we think this is a good bid? I don't understand.
What's different is this was not our engineer's estimate. This was Trust for Public Lands engineer's estimate, and Trust for Public Lands design. We have not been hands-on to this project except for the last maybe 60 days or so. So
I guess
another thing that could have impacted that is that prevailing wage rate for landscapers has gone up substantially in the past year. And so that the landscaping cost in the bid was quite a bit higher than TPL's estimate, and I think that might be the reason why.
So I guess, have we gone back to TPL with this information, and have they come back with any solutions at all?
So Carrie, you want to come up and talk?
Yeah, we have Carrie Simmons here from TPL.
Come on up, Carrie. We've been talking with Carrie every day this week.
We're looking at a 31% over estimate here.
Hi there, I'm Carrie Simmons. I'm the Northwest Program Director at the Trust for Public Land. And a couple of the questions, we did hire a third-party cost estimator to run this entire project through so that we were fact-checking our own engineers and landscape architects' estimates. And that estimate came in under $2 million, which seems suspiciously low to us. So we were actually maintaining a very healthy contingency on top of the third-party estimate we did, and we're honestly surprised that this bid came back as high as it did. We followed the due diligence we normally follow on our projects, and I think there are a number of issues, some of which Charlotte described, that could explain sort of the situation of the bid that we have. And did you have a separate question?
Well, I guess my question to you would be, once you got these high bids, have you gone back and reevaluated what could be done? I mean, we had $2 million basically raised to do this. Do you think we're going to be able to raise additional money to bring it to completion? Or is there areas that we need to look at to bring our construction costs down?
I think it's unlikely we can
both.
Close the gap with philanthropy. So to date, there are about 150 donors to this project, and any donors that could contribute to the extent to close a gap of this size, we've spoken to, and they've either donated or they've declined to participate. So I think it's very unlikely that we could raise private funds to close the gap.
Yeah, so the Finance Committee met today to talk about it, and I've met with Brad and Allison and others just over the last 3 or 4 days to talk about, obviously, there's a funding gap here. We met with Charlotte about the piecemeal this together. She's recommended we don't. I talked with Carrie on the phone. I think I agree with him. We've sort of done all we can do with the sort of the donors in the area, and Carrie did send me a letter today, or a little note, and said that he thinks the Trust for Public Lands might have another $100,000 they can kick in to take it from 900 down to 800,000 city additional contribution. Finance Committee looked today, and we've got, when you passed the budget, we had a number of capital items that were in the budget that aren't going to happen this year. We have the Juniper project out on North Wenatchee Avenue for $150,000 that isn't going to happen. We had $120,000 for purchases of what we call dilapidated properties. We had a couple of properties that were really in bad shape, but we thought if the city came in and purchased them, that we could get them tore down and help sort of reinvigorate a neighborhood. Neither of those two property owners are interested in the city's participation, so those have sort of fallen apart. And then, quite frankly, when we look at our rainy day fund, our budget, our financial policy says we should keep $1 million in our rainy day fund. We have $1.5 million in it today. And we've, our capital budget put another $500,000 in it in 2019. So the Finance Committee sort of kicked around this idea of maybe not funding the rainy day fund immediately, pulling the two projects that aren't going to happen. That money's enough to get us basically within $50,000 of the finish line on this. And then we can look at the end of this year and say, hey, maybe the rainy day fund can get another maybe a couple $100,000 contribution or something like that. So I think we have sort of figured out a way to get this thing financed to the end so that we can build what we sort of promised the community with all of the attributes that have gone through. This has had a year and a half or 2 years of design and meeting with the neighbors and the community about the things that they want. And I mean, this has got the AstroTurf soccer field, it's got the alleyway improvements. It really has all of the things that we sort of talked about. We talked about, do you rebid it? Do you pull out these two things and rebid them later? And it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense because Charlotte says we don't know that we're going to get better bids. So it really, and we sort of thought about building it this year. We got the grants are sort of running out. So I think we have a math equation that gets us to the finish line as long as the council's okay with using the ways, using the pots of money that we talked about to get this to the finish line. So I personally I think we ought to just jump ahead and get this built. But so I think we have some way of sort of getting there.
Yeah, it stings that the bid came in high like that, but taking out from the park would probably not make the park, the way it was originally envisioned, in a way that is that could bring pride to the culture of what this park is meant to do. We have seen over the last year and a half a community, a neighborhood engaged and wanting so badly to make neighborhood connections. That is priceless. That, to me, justifies building this park. Not only that, you also have, a way this park will build bridges in this community, because it's not just for the folks who live in the South End. This is going to be a park that this entire city is going to be able to illuminate in a way that we are culturally diverse, and it's going to be inviting to everyone. The other thing too, is we need to remember that for a very long time, the South End was ignored. I remember when I was a kid, the South End was ignored for a very, very long time, with the exception of the last few years, But even out in the community, I still hear people talking about, oh, well, no one cares about the South End. So it's still very much resonating in the community of how the South End is ignored. This park is going to be evidence that the South End is no longer ignored.
And if we don't do it, there is going to be trust broken. You're going to lose that. We've started building a relationship here between the city and that neighborhood, and we really need to carry this through. We've told them they were going to have this park. We need to make it happen.
We told the entire city that we're going to
Yes, we
build
did.
this park.
I have two curiosities. Is the participation of Kiwanis in the TPL donations?
Financial participation of Kiwanis. I believe historically Kiwanis, over a span of about 15 years, put in somewhere around $100,000 in improvements through annual volunteer days. And in this campaign, the numbers in front of you, I think the Kiwanis Club put about $2,000 in, somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000.
I was just curious because we have service clubs coming and asking us to attach their name to our
Right.
parks, and we're always left with the question, what's your engagement in that?
They made a small gift to the campaign.
And I guess my other curiosity with all of this is we have this budget that's needs what, another 642,000, not counting staff time on it?
Not counting contingencies.
What about the contingencies?
Right,
I mean, are we going to be no change orders that add money?
No, so if you'll look, the amount that we're actually asking for does include a 10%
Okay.
contingency, as well as
That's good to know.
money for an
There
arborist.
might be a big rock under the ground there that we're unaware of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep. So, and materials testing and also the restroom building that we are providing to the contractor, because that's
Yeah.
not part of the contract. So the number, yeah, is actually around 800,000.
So I guess we've got maybe a few members of the audience that may want to address the council. Anybody from the audience? Terry, I see you raising your hand, so we'll let the audience give a few minutes, and then we'll turn it over to the council to see what any action they have.
You're not going to let me have that one. Well, I just wanted to echo. So Terry Valdez, I've been fortunate to be the art consultant on several projects with the city and with Trust for Public Land now. And many of you have participated. I think Lyle, I'm just going to hire as an art intern with me in my studio. Lyle never misses. He's awesome. All of you are. So anyway, thank you for support that way. But one thing I want to remind us all of, I think in a positive way, is that the city, with city staff and myself, and most importantly, the members of the community, the South Wenatchee neighborhoods, is develop the template of how we did outreach and got ideas for the park, for the momentum that's going right now. And so I just want to speak to how important it is to keep this momentum going now. The picture's there, the vision's there, and the community is, if you were there Monday night, it was awesome. It was really, really awesome, the energy that was in that room. So all I ask is that we remind ourselves what kind of momentum we built, that's very organic, very creative, and we finish this in the right way.
Thanks, Terry. Anybody else wish to address the council? Yes, come on up.
Hello, my name is Lisa Rivera, and I am here representing myself as a South Wenatchee resident that lives literally 1 block above from the park. Also, Pinnacles Prep and Cafe. I'm going to speak first on behalf of Pinnacles Prep and Cafe. For both of those groups and organizations and the school, as La Señora Ruth was speaking, we definitely are building bridges, and I think in the plans that both Cafe and their program Dream as a Team, and especially Pinnacles Prep, have planned to use the park as a place for the children to engage and to go outdoors and to really have access to green spaces that otherwise, especially for low-income and South Wenatchee residents, it isn't really accessible when their parents are working in the packing sheds all day or in the orchards all day. As a South Wenatchee resident, I wanted to really speak to the importance of this, as you all have already highlighted. This is really something different from just patrons of the park. As Parque Padrinos, we've really come to build a really strong community, and we're helping each other out, and it all started because of this project of renovating and remodeling the park. And I think even we wouldn't have this opportunity to have this community and to have these relationships of deep trust and deep understanding and deep being there and supporting one another. And as growing up in South Wenatchee, there was definitely and still is that notion that we are underserved and that we are overlooked. And I think this is one way that you guys can at least start to show that we aren't. I don't think it's the end, and I think it's simply the beginning. And I really want you to vote yes on moving it forward and helping us really have this park, because it means so much to us. It's not just a park that's going to be there. There's kids right now playing there. There's kids every day there during the summer once it gets warm. Even on rainy days where it's a little warm, they're playing soccer. And so I just wanted to please thank you already for what you have done and ask for your continuous support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is the name in English of the park, it's Godparents?
Yes, Parque Padrinos, last Señora Ruth helped us create that name actually. And it is Park Godparents, but we've kind of twisted it because, you know, when you approach especially the Latino community and tell them, hey, do you want to be a patron of the park? They're like, I don't know about that. Like, that sounds like too much commitment. But when you tell them that it's a padrino and something more cultural, they engage more. And that's, I think, really how we've been able to have so many people here. And we have the padrinitos, which are the children that are the patrons of the park. But yeah, it's really helped us twist it and engage a lot more people and have what we have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anybody else wish to address the council before they got a couple of folks?
Muy buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es Armando y yo estoy aquí para pedirles su apoyo a este parque. Yo no les voy a hablar de números, no les voy a hablar de otros eventos, pero sí les voy a hablar de un lugar donde toda la comunidad se pueda sentir bienvenida.
Good afternoon. His name is Armando Bendito, and he's not here to speak on behalf of numbers or events, but he is here to speak on a place that has really changed the community.
Y con la construcción, que yo espero que ustedes lo aprueben, del parque, los que van a salir más beneficiados van a ser nuestros niños, porque van a tener un lugar donde ir a divertirse, hacer deportes y algunas otras actividades que van a salir en el camino. Y por lo consiguiente, nosotros como comunidad vamos a salir ganando porque vamos a tener un lugar libre de gangas.
So, he's here to speak on behalf of you moving forward and accepting that this park be built and your support with it. I kind of forgot some of what he said, but I'll try to remember what I did.
Because it's going to benefit the children?
Yes, the people that will most benefit from this are the children who will have a place to play, a place to practice sports, a place to have and engage in other activities, and especially a place that's going to be free from gang-related activity.
Y yo espero que no sea, que este sea el primero de a lo mejor algún otro parque que se pueda remodelar. Y ya para terminar, quiero darles las gracias y espero que un día ustedes también puedan ir al parque y disfrutar con su familia y que todos nos sientamos bienvenidos porque este va a ser un proyecto de toda la comunidad. Muchas gracias.
He says that this is a place for the entire community to really feel like they belong, and he hopes that with your support and after this will be one of the first of many parks that will be remodeled and have this kind of engagement, and that moving forward, he hopes you all are able to go to the park and be there with your families and really enjoy what it is like to be there and the atmosphere that's there.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias.
All right, anybody else?
Hi, my name is Flora Fernandez. I've lived in this community for a very, very long time, and I didn't know what to expect when I came here to apoyar all my Kiwanis in my Medhow Park. I am also supporting them, and as you see, the Wenatchee, South Wenatchee, has been neglected for several years, for many, many years since I've lived here. To me, joining them made me feel a part of something, made me feel special, and I think it's mainly all those children in the back, that they have somebody to support them, to know that there's a safe place to go, that anywhere from the Parques Padrinos, they can have assistance, they need help, they can play safely in the park. The area right now is not, there's no lights there. The area is not safe. It's not safe even in the day sometimes. But when we all come together and make this happen for the kids, I think in the long run, it's going to be awesome. And it's not just for us. And just like the gentleman back here said, it's for our children. And many, many years down the road, we'll see that it was a great benefit. And hopefully we'll make more parks and make South Wenatchee not look like it was neglected. And hopefully the community can come together.
Great, thank you. So, yes, sir, come on up. Then I also want to hear from staff to make sure that if we make a motion, go ahead, sit down, that we get enough money allocated. If that's, I don't know that the 2.6 is going to be enough, so I want to make sure we spend a minute with that. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Alfredo Ortiz, and this is the first time I come to one of these council meetings. I'm really excited when I first heard about Kiwanis and the renovation of the park. I've been in Wenatchee now for the last 3 years. I come from Okanagan County. And when I first heard about this, I was really excited because I remembered when I was a kid. And I grew up in the Tenasca community, small town, and the only thing that was really there was the park. When my parents were working, that was one of the things that I enjoyed and one of my best memories growing up. Currently, I work at Wenatchee Valley College with students that come from migrant seasonal farm working backgrounds, and a lot of our students that are in their first year of college have lived in the South Wenatchee area. And the first time I went out to volunteer this summer in the first annual Cherry Harvest Fest, I saw a lot of our students that were like, I grew up here, and it's really great that they're trying to renovate this. And so what I like to say is that I think that it's a great investment, not only for the community, but for the students that grew up here, the kids that grew up here, and now they're grown up, and it can give them a sense of pride, and being able to look back and be like, hey, this is where I grew up, and like, look how much it's grown, how much it's improved. And I think that will give them something to want to take care of the park and want it to preserve it. And like I said, it'll give them a sense of identity and also build the community and bridge that gap between the rest of Wenatchee.
Great, thank you.
Frank, the one thing I didn't hear anybody speak to, oh, go ahead.
Come on up, Teresa.
Hi, my name is Yuri. I want to be here to say that if you guys could please give money to the park so we can make it bigger, because I also want to play.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa. So help me with, I know we've got a contract for 2.69 million. Is that all we need authority for, or with the 10% and all the other stuff? Is there more that we need to sort of allocate towards? What is your preference, Mr. Brad?
Hold it in.
Hold it in.
Based on the total expense budget, based on the total expense budget that was presented of the $3,070,000, I believe that what we need to come up with is basically the $818,000. So, as you discussed, if we can repurpose some of the general fund commitments that were made for 2019, I think we came up with $770,000 of the one-time commitments that could be repurposed. That would leave us with $50,000 that we would need to do a budget amendment for in the general fund. I think we will do the budget amendments, if the budget amendments are needed, we will do those formally at another meeting in a month or two. But as far as just, at least if I've got direction, that is the way we're going to go, by repurposing and doing a $50,000 budget amendment rather than an $820,000 budget amendment. That's what I would want to know. And I would say that it would be pushing it for us to try to pull the full $820,000 difference that we need without repurposing some of those one-time requests that we've already done.
So a motion for approval that included $2,693,082.50 with the repurpose of those three funds is all that you need, is enough?
Yep. I think that would be the direction that we would need.
All right, thank you.
Charlotte.
Yes.
Actually, the amount we need, that contract, there was an error in that amount. So what we need is $2,691,882.50.
Someone write that down? I didn't write it down.
Would you like it again?
Yes, please.
2,691,882.50.
Excellent. Oops.
The I think on the document that I had in front of me, if we keep the bid alternates in the contract, the total that we needed was a 918,000
But,
minus 100,000.
right, minus 100,000 that
The
TPL
TPL
has kicked in this
So
week.
that puts us at 818,000 that we need.
Correct.
And so then I think if we can repurpose the 770, then that gives us the 50,000 difference that we'll need. And if I've got that direction, then I can bring those budget amendments back, or whatever the direction is decided tonight.
Okay.
We can bring those budget amendments back to formally adopt.
I think so.
Okay. Thanks, Brad.
Okay.
All right, council members?
Ruth, you were going to say that nobody's mentioned something? Not
Oh,
really.
yeah. I was just going to say that no one mentioned the potential for economic development around this park. In Mexico, there is always commerce around parks like this. Always. It just naturally builds itself to be where people conduct business, go to the market, and Latinos have financial power in this community. Let's just not forget that.
So after the council meeting, let me tell you a vision I have related to that. Honestly, you know, this is a big gulp if we just look at it from a public works project. I think from this professional planner's perspective, it just points out to me the importance of public space, even in the urban environment. And I'm not talking school district space, because school districts are great to have their grounds, but they serve, that space serves a different purpose than parks do. Parks are tailored to a neighborhood or, in a large scale, a community. And whether it's Centennial Park downtown, whether it's Rotary Park, whether it's, well, forget Rainbow Park, I've never quite figured that one out, but the importance of these public spaces to the community, it just reinforces it for me.
You're absolutely right. I've attended a couple of events at Met-Hal Park, and I was always so touched by the feeling of community and family and fun, and people cherish each other, and they just took me in and made me feel at home like I was part of their family, and it was such a great time, and this is something that really, really needs to happen. So
You ready to make a motion?
I'm going to make a motion. Motion for city council to authorize, I move for city council to authorize the mayor to sign a standard construction contract with KRCI in the amount of $2,691,882.50 for construction of Kiwanis Met-Hal Park improvement projects, with the repurposing $500,000 from the rainy day fund, $120,000 from the purchase of dilapidated properties, and $150,000 juniper removal.
Second.
Does that say it?
That's good enough, yep. So we got a motion by Councilmember Harold and a second by Councilmember Esparza to authorize the mayor to sign a standard construction contract with KRCI in the amount of $2,691,000, I think it's $882.50, is that right? I didn't write it down.
Yes.
Okay. For the construction of the Kiwanis Met-Hal Park improvements and the repurposing of $500,000 from the rainy day fund. How much from what were the other two?
Oh,
I didn't write it down.
$500,000 rainy day fund, $120,000 from purchasing the dilapidated properties,
Okay.
and $150,000 juniper
Yeah,
removal.
$150,000 from the juniper removal and $120,000 from dilapidated property purchases. So we got a motion and we have a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious, kind of going back to Councilmember Kulas. What's Kiwanis going to do for the future for this park?
Yeah, I think that's a really good thing. I mean, you should compare it to what's happened at Rotary Park.
Okay.
So if we look at Rotary Park, the Rotary organization built that park probably not only with their sweat equity, but with their money. And now they maintain it. They come in every year and they put in countless hours. They continually add shelters. They continually add features to the park at pretty good expense for Rotary. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but I know Rotarians have spent far more on that park than the city of Wenatchee has. We maintain it, we take care of it, but the Rotaries really stepped up when they did that. And I know it was several groups that they did. So you're thinking...
And I look at the elements that that park has. That park is really pretty simple. It's got a lot of open grass space that people can play baseball or soccer or whatever. We do have the wonderful attraction of the splash pad that gets so much use that it's hard to maintain because it was undersized when they built it, because that was the money they had. They had this much money to spend, they spent it. And so I'm still struggling with this park design, with the amount of money that's going to be spent for a park this size. I think it's wonderful. If we had the money, it would be wonderful to do. But I think not enough was done to make sure that we were staying under budget or within budget. And I don't think enough has been done to see if there isn't some other ways we can get it built without having to ask us, the city council, to use the public's money. This isn't our money, it's the public's money. And we're supposed to be good stewards of that money. This is a lot of money that they're asking to put towards this park. And especially when we're naming it Kiwanis Park, or as part of the name, I don't know that they've done enough to really deserve the renaming, to Mark's point.
You know, I hear what you're saying. Maybe we need to think about changing that name so it's just maybe some other name. But I think
That's
it's
irrespective. Today we're voting on a park.
Yeah,
Let's not get
exactly.
into
The name is not the issue.
Yeah, are we building a park or are we not
The issue
building a
is the
park?
amount of money. The issue is the
Well,
amount of
and I
money.
agree with that, but you drive around and you look. The neighborhood I live in has streets, good streets, it has sidewalks, it has lighting, so you're safe at night. I'm working the Fiestas Mexicanas last September, and these people are coming up to me and saying, what do you need? What do you want? We need lights so our children are safe when they walk home from school activities at night. We need sidewalks so they don't get hit by the cars. And now they need a park. This is a community center for them. This is very important for them, and we need to carry it through.
All right, Jim, you got something to say before we vote?
Yeah, I live, I'm not in the district that the park's in, but I'm close. I'm on the border there. I'm about 5 blocks away. And this is an area that has, had, a lot of issues with, in that neighborhood area. What I see happening here is the ownership of the people in and around that area, which to me is a game changer. It isn't just a park, it isn't just a place. It now becomes part of the neighborhood, and the ownership that the people have taken on, to me, is extraordinarily encouraging. I'm going to vote yes on this. Like Keith, I have a problem with, I guess what started out as it sounded like a good idea, and it is a good idea, but the thing has turned into kind of one of those kind of projects where, it just keeps on giving, or the price tag keeps going up and up and up. And like Keith, I agree. I mean, it seems like for the size of the park and the things that'll be there, this seems like a really big price tag compared to other parks and things we've done. But a lot of the dollars and cents here, though, that bothers me. But I think what the benefit to the community and to the city as a whole, I find, I guess that to me is money well spent.
All right, anybody else wish to say something before we vote?
Well, I just think it's going to provide a lot of benefits as it goes on to the community, to the city. And so I think it's a thing that's got to be done.
I don't disagree with any of that, but again, I just don't think enough has been done to see if there wasn't any ways. So as a representative of public's money, I can't in good faith vote for this at this moment.
All right, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries, 6 in favor, 1 against. I will add one little piece of political comment, and then we'll take a little 5-minute break. So I think this council needs to be thanked. 5 or 6 years ago, if you would have came to us and asked for $1 million for a park, we didn't have it. So this council and the leadership team is appreciated that actually we have the ability to actually do this, because it wasn't very long ago where there was no way if you came to us for $10,000, we didn't have it, much less $1 million. So congratulations to the staff and the council members for working hard to making sure we have that. Congratulations to the Padrinos. We'll take a 5-minute break. So our last item on our agenda tonight is a public hearing. It's regarding the draft amendment 1 for the 2018 annual action plan. So Brooklyn is going to present that, I think. So for public hearings, we'll turn it over to our staff. We'll ask questions of staff, then we'll turn it over to any member of the public that wishes to make a comment. So Brooklyn.
Brooklyn Holton, Housing and Community Planner for the city. So before you is an amendment to the 2018 Annual Action Plan for the Community Development Block Grant. And it is the 2018 plan. We have an odd timeline for that, and so our 2018 program will end until the end of September of this year. So in the original plan, we had put in for an extension or a change of our program year so that it would adjust from going from April to March every year, and that would change from October to September. So in that extension, it didn't come with an increased award allocation, so we had to be flexible. So we've been figuring out where should funding go, how much should go in each project to make sure that the salaries for code enforcement, the projects for Chelan Avenue, and the support for the code enforcement work is adequate for that 18-month period. And so in front of you guys is just a kind of reallocation of the funding that we have in our plan. And since it's over $25,000, it's considered a substantial amendment, which requires a public hearing and adoption by the council. So the funding is going to be stemming from this year's Chelan Avenue allocation, and the code enforcement increase from $36,700 to $84,800 is for the salaries for our code enforcement department, and that is kind of essentially covering 2 years, and because we're going into the 18-month cycle. And then the code enforcement referral and debris removal, we're increasing that just a little bit because we already had one project that drew down the entire amount that we had originally allocated. So we're just adding a little bit more into that so that code enforcement throughout the summer has some support for those homeowners and residents. In the table below, the items that are bolded, you'll see those are the ones that are being impacted. The program admin and the amount that we provided to Literacy Council are not being changed. The Planning Commission saw this last week, and we went through that, and they provided a recommendation to the council to accept the amendment and go forward with the adoption. Are there any questions on this?
Any questions for Brooklyn?
I don't necessarily have a question specific to this, just in general to refresh my memory here on the annual plan and then our consolidated plan. As for example, when the Chelan Avenue project finishes, we obviously have probably in each of our districts we have, well, not maybe we have areas that qualify for the receipt of CDBG funds and are lacking in sidewalks and illumination. And is that at what process do we begin to talk about which ones go next? For example, in my district, Sunset Avenue extending from 9th to 5th has no sidewalks, and it connects a low-income housing project and neighborhood walkways to Orchard Middle School, and there's no sidewalk, in that 9th to 5th, so 4-block area. When do we get to talk about monies for designs of some of these critical gaps like we had on Chelan?
Yeah, so I have a couple pieces of my answer. And the first one would be anytime that we're doing a consolidated plan. So we are currently working right now to update our consolidated plan. So the new one will start 2020. And so that provides a really broad view of the priorities that we have for our community. So right now, one of the priorities is sidewalks and lighting. We're working with a consultant right now to explore additional possibilities. We've reduced the amount that we've received over the last couple of years, and so that's made it challenging to do sidewalk projects. Like the Chelan Avenue one's been going since 2014. And so we're looking at, our sidewalks and lighting the best and most efficient and effective use of the funding? And so during that process, that would be a really great time to kind of be involved. I mean, I'll be presenting to you guys definitely that information. But to really look at what is the demand for sidewalk and lighting infrastructure in our community, and is this the best fund? Connected to that, we have our pedestrian master plan that we've been working on. And that plan is also going to look at the supply in terms of current financial funding and opportunities that we have or that we actually utilize currently, and the need for sidewalk, lighting, pedestrian and bike infrastructure in our community, and comparing those. And so both of those will be looking at opportunities for those fundings, and should we try and be a little bit more innovative or more partnered with our community when it comes to the sidewalk and lighting, because the demand is so high and the financial support in that right now is, it just really doesn't support all of the needs in the community. So both of those kind of analyzations and adjustments of funding are coming around. And then there's a third part, which would be the annual action plan. And that's how we implement what is in our other plans and how we identify what's the best use of that funding. And that's on the annual basis. And because of the extension, that would normally be done kind of around this time. But with the new program extension, it'll be done in the fall for the 2019 program. And we got notification that we got $2,318 and $183 for the 2019 program. So it's less than we even got this year. So trying to make sure that with the limited funding, can we leverage it either for economic development, or do we need to leverage it somehow with other funding and still focus on sidewalk? So we're exploring that internally, and then we'll also be exploring it with the Planning Commission and you guys later next year. Does that answer? Does that help at all? I don't know.
Because I've known for a long time where we've been putting our sidewalk and street funds in a particular project, and my only thought was maybe we're getting to the point where we need to look at other areas as well.
Yeah, and
would the Sunset Street, would that work for safe routes to school, or is that too many blocks away?
Yeah.
Well, it could, only if it's pursued. And we've talked about safe routes to school funding, where a lot of other projects, we've never pursued them.
Yeah,
so it only works.
We get safe routes to school funding
Well, I'm
every
still
year.
waiting for the radar sign detector on Crawford Street at Methow. And, things like
Yeah.
that. So, I mean, I'm not being argumentative.
No.
What I'm saying is, I believe things are needed, and I was just wondering where to plug them in.
Yeah, and back to the pedestrian plan, some of the analysis that we're doing on that, there's a bunch of different GIS layers. I'll toot Matt's horn. It's been incredibly helpful. We created pedestrian zones, and we've looked at different layers of lighting, pedestrian scale lighting. So what are the different heights? What's a different type of lighting? Where we have it mapped that where is there sidewalk, where is there not sidewalk, where are there tripping hazards and not. And so once we're able to do more analysis with that area and kind of start looking at and prioritizing certain sections of each of the pedestrian zones, projects like that will probably come up more. And then we can actually overlay that with a buffer zone around pedestrian generators, which includes schools. So we'll be able to see where is just general sidewalk and pedestrian demand overlaid with other opportunities and grants like Safe Routes for Schools or the Complete Streets funding or any TIB grants, things like that. Or even AARP has small grants for small projects. And Safe Routes to School actually has a new one, Safe Routes to Parks. We received that grant, and that actually supports infrastructure development. So through that pedestrian plan process, we'll be able to kind of overlay those financial opportunities with the areas that have the greatest need related to those pedestrian generators like schools. I don't know if I'm answering any questions. I'm just like kind of trying to share some
for Brooklyn
information.
before we turn it over to the audience? All right, any member of the audience wish to address the council on the amendment to the CDBG annual action plan? Seeing no takers, I will turn it over to the council for any action. What's that?
So there were so many people in the last one. Am I allowed to ask, was it sunset between 5th and 9th? Is that where you
Yes.
said? Okay.
Yeah, there's sidewalks on
Fifth and
one
Orchard.
side of Sunset between Fifth and Orchard Middle School.
Oh, Orchard Middle
But there are
School.
none
Between
Fifth and Ninth.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, several of the streets, I can't remember, Seventh doesn't have sidewalks on it.
There's a bunch of them there.
Eighth does.
So it's just kind of like gap
Sixth
filling.
doesn't. Yeah.
There's a lot
But I
of,
was more interested in, when I walked the neighborhoods in my district, looking out for,
Mhm.
okay, if I'm in this complex, of homes, neighborhood, and then the multifamily, I'm most likely walking to Orchard Middle School. And how do I get there? Of course, I have to cross Fifth Street without flashing beacons and whatnot, but at least, you know, in the winter, I can get on a sidewalk and get someplace.
Okay.
Gotta hold it in.
It'll be something that the council will see eventually, the pedestrian plan. But if you have a chance and interest early on, feel free to talk with us and come in and look at this map and the inventory. It's really great on a neighborhood level, on a council district level. You can really see where the gaps are, needs, and it'll be a really wonderful new tool, whether it's funding through CDBG or it's a funding source through Safe Routes, or it's a dedicated fund that's set up on a yearly basis to invest in sidewalks. It's going to be a fun new tool.
Yeah.
Coming your way in the future.
I think that'll be really good because there's a lot of places in our city where, especially during the winter when the snow plows have pushed all the snow up there, the kids are walking down the middle of the road because that's really the only place to walk. It's been that way far too long.
All right, I would entertain a motion regarding Amendment 1 to the annual action plan if we had one.
And I'll make a motion for the city council to adopt the CDBG draft amendment 1 to the 2018, is that 1 or I?
1.
To the 2018 annual action plan as a final version, and authorize the mayor to sign any updated applications, certifications, assurances, or contracts necessary as a result of the amendment.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Huffaker, second by Councilmember Bailey to adopt the CDBG draft amendment 1 to the 2018 annual action plan as a final version, authorize the mayor to sign any updated applications, certifications, assurances, or contracts necessary as a result of the amendment. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Brooklyn.
Thank you.
Mayor's report. Not really sure. Today I gave a speech at Stand Against Racism. Congresswoman Schreier was in town, so we met with her for an hour or so with a number of other mayors from around the region, 6 or 7. Obviously, I emceed Chief for a Day, which was amazing, as always. Leaving here for a YWCA event at the museum. Had a public works, not even public works, it was a health wellness committee barbecue on Tuesday. It was very well attended, so we had hot dogs and played wiffle ball. Jim hit the ball a long ways. He did. He hit the ball good. Mike didn't hit though. Did you hit?
No, I was intimidated.
After watching Jim hit, yeah. I think we're watching stuff in Olympia. I don't really know if they're going to get out of session. We've been sort of watching our NEPA money. I don't know if that'll be a last minute, whether it's in the transportation budget or not. It's all secret right now, so I don't think you know until someone presents a budget that passes. So
It is going to be something to read all of the late legislation that passed because there's just things flying through.
yeah, they're supposed to be out of there Sunday, so I'm assuming they'll spend their weekend passing bills and we'll have to.
Definitely along party lines. So,
Yeah.
wow.
No idea whether there's a capital gains tax, carbon tax. I don't know what the transportation bill looks like.
Right.
So I think it's been pretty quiet over there the last 3 weeks or so. I think that would be the right way to describe that.
Yep.
Council members, anything?
Next Wednesday is the opening reception for our
Massawa?
Massawa Sister City. It'll be held right here at 3 o'clock.
So are we doing it here or are we going to do it in the plaza? We're going to try to do it in the outdoor plaza if it's nice.
So there's definitely some confusion on that needs to be cleared up.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of confusion because originally the date was wrong and
Yeah, because my little thing here says welcome reception at Wenatchee City Hall, but that doesn't mean anything. I'll double check.
It is the city hall. It's just outside of the
I
city
know.
hall.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
We'll
Anyway.
have a balloon arch.
Yeah, we'll figure something out. Yeah.
keep the doors locked.
We do.
Yeah,
We will.
Just
You have to go back
situation
out.
normal.
Yeah.
I've had, well, and also during Apple Blossom, I don't make funnel cakes. I put the stuff on it. So come down next Wednesday and next Friday and in the afternoon and you can buy a funnel cake. I've had the experience of interfacing with our cemetery staff the last couple of months on several occasions. And I continue to be, given the resources, impressed. And both in terms of how the staff treats you and their responsiveness, as well as their desire to make the facility look good. And we talked at length today about the tree replacement projects going on. They had 2 mowers working, almost swathing out there. Anyway, I continue to be very satisfied with the courteousness and the dedication of our staff.
I had a hot dog with them on Tuesday, and I said, once they get the building up and painted and the other one removed, we'll have city council come out.
Yeah.
Have a little tour of the facility and the new building and meet with them, so.
I'd like to mention too, just the old Carnegie building's been
Looks really nice, doesn't it?
painted and windows taken care of and whatever, and it looks really, really nice. And I don't know, Dave still, I guess he took off, but yeah, it really looks nice.
The facilities guys, Aaron and Elisa and those guys have done an amazing job. And then Finance Committee dedicated way more money than we thought to that project as well, in terms of there was asbestos in this and there was lead paint in that. And but I really think for the 100th, it really does look beautiful. And I've got lots of comments about how nice it looks.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking care of that old building.
Yeah.
So,
Darcy wants to bring back the Carnegie name to the building too.
Oh.
That's pretty wonderful.
Yep.
Should be.
I might also mention that we had some council members with schedule issues. So Ruth is stepping down from Public Works ED, Mike is stepping in, and Ruth is taking on the Community Action Council. So we may need to check with Community Action in terms of the designation of the council member. We may need to bring something forward to you.
okay. And we're not meeting next week.
Right.
Okay. And haven't thought 2 weeks in advance.
It's Apple Blossom.
Got to get through Apple
on-
Blossom, yeah.
Yeah. I was mentioning today how accessible this building is to the food fair.
Yes.
You wouldn't think that just around the block would make a difference, but
Well, the problem is
the
we
direction.
can see, and we can see it from our windows, yeah.
And if you could open the windows.
You can open the windows, you can smell it.
Yeah. All right, everyone, we're adjourned. Thank you.